Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, our next week's special will kick off next week, with our week dedicated to the enemies of the Imperium. However, with that said, on to today. Today we are asking the question, if the Dark Angels were right or wrong to hide the truth of Caliban'S destruction. General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. For as long as there's been the Dark Angels chapter, there's been the secret of the Fallen, the stain on the legacy of a once proud legion, perhaps the most proud legion, the First. The Horus Heresy series has revealed the truth of not only the Primarch Lionel Johnson's loyalties, but also that of his legion, the true tale of the Fallen's betrayal. Though the likes of Luther and Astalan may claim loyalty to the Emperor in their interrogations, we have seen the realities behind those lies, how they betrayed Primarch, Imperium, and Emperor. In seeking to free Caliban from the Emperor's rule, they committed every sin. All that remains to truly be seen is how the Lion's fateful return to Caliban will play out exactly. The Fallen claim the Lion fired first, the Dark Angels claim otherwise. Given everything we know of the Dark Angels Primarch, I do not doubt for 1 second that he did fire first. Honestly, does anyone really think the Lion would seek a peaceful resolution upon finally returning home after decades of the heresy, only to be told Luther's in charge now, and Caliban no longer recognizes the Imperium's rule? I mean, this is Lionel Johnson we're talking about. It's like slapping Russ in the face and not expecting a fight. Loyalty is everything to the Lion, and any betrayal of it is to be met with his wrath. The Lion absolutely fired first, and I don't think he was wrong to do so. This was only ever going to end one way, and that was at the end of the Lion's sword. So far, the only glimpse of the events we have seen are the maddened recollections of Luther himself, the memories of the Lion's sword embedded within Luther's midriff, and the Primarch's face filled with rage. Now, the upcoming Scouring series will surely show us the reality of these events, as well as the Dark Angels' actions in the immediate aftermath, explaining why they will decide to hide the truth of these events. But are they right or wrong? Did they need to hide the truth? Well, that's what we're debating today. So let's begin with yes, the Dark Angels were right to take the path they did. Now for me, perhaps the best reason for this is actually given within the current Dark Angels Codex, and that is that the Imperium in the aftermath of the heresy was a very different one to the one before, and possibly even during it. There's a really interesting passage explaining just how dangerous the Imperium is during the Scouring. Suspicion hung over everyone and everything. Investigation after investigation yielded corruption in every strata of Imperial society, on thousands of worlds. Pyres burnt for weeks on end as heretics were put to the torch. Blood flowed in rivers as executioners' axes were blunted on the necks of traitors. The Imperium was steeped in paranoia, recriminations and vengeance. That innocents were slaughtered in these campaigns of retribution is certain, and the Dark Angels knew they were guilty. The Imperium in the aftermath of the heresy is going to be one motivated by revenge. The Imperium is hurt, and it is angry. For all the pure intentions of eradicating traitors and turncoats, there is no doubt there will be a collective thirst for vengeance. Any excuse to expose and punish will be seized. As it says, thousands of worlds are going to feel the Imperium's wrath. Thousands of apparently loyal worlds. And that line, that innocents were slaughtered in these campaigns of retribution, is certain. That is so telling. When there's such an overwhelming desire, a reaction out of pain and anger, logic isn't always paramount in the mind. Yes, the Dark Angels had been betrayed. Yes, their Primarch had been betrayed. Yes, they had defeated that enemy, at the very cost of their homeworld. But all the rest of the Imperium would have seen was traitor Dark Angels, a taint within that must be expunged. And perhaps there's further evidence to suggest the Dark Angels were right to hide the truth. As the Codex also tells us, there were indeed several investigations into the chapter by Imperial authorities, though they found nothing. However, it also states a lot of this may be due to the turmoil of the galaxy at the time, so no real time or resources were dedicated to it. The Dark Angels' isolation from others was put down to the losses they had suffered, and the Imperium simply left them to perform their duty, fighting the enemies of mankind. Considering the Fallen were believed to have been destroyed with Caliban at this time, the Dark Angels rightly could have felt this dark episode was consigned to the past, and perhaps over time they would have returned to being a more standard chapter, improving relations with others. However, as we know, it wasn't to be. Yes, they lied, hid the truth of Caliban's destruction, the betrayal from within. But those who remained were loyal sons of the Lion, loyal to the Imperium and its Emperor above all else. Consigning them to the fires of the Scouring would have been a shame the Imperium would never outlive. So yes, the Dark Angels were right to hide the truth. They did not deserve to be eradicated for remaining loyal. And now, no, the Dark Angels were wrong. While perhaps the survival of the Fallen wouldn't emerge for many years, the descent of the Dark Angels and their actions began immediately. In their desire to conceal what had happened upon Caliban, the Angels became desperate men. And desperate men take desperate actions. The Dark Angels Codex makes reference to not knowing what happened to the tens of thousands of Legion servants, the men and women who were not Astartes but were witness to Caliban's destruction, heavily implying the Dark Angels killed, or at least had killed, the tens of thousands of innocent, loyal souls. This would be just the first disgraceful act the Dark Angels would commit, in their obsession to conceal the truth, to protect their hidden history. Something that in its own right makes them no better than the Fallen who betrayed them. Add to that this would just be the first of many acts over the following 10,000 years, disappearances of loyal subjects, abandoning of allies on battlefields. How can we say the Dark Angels were right to hide the truth, if this is what it would lead to? How could the Lion be proud of these actions? The more you think about it, the more you wonder how he could ever return without major ramifications for his chapter. But he did value his Legion above everything else, so perhaps he'll see reason to their actions. Regardless, there can be no debate of the lengths the Dark Angels and the entire Unforgiven have gone to hide their past. Was the lie their only choice? Despite the hostility and the bloodlust within the Imperium at the time, would one of the few remaining loyal legions truly have been expunged? Again, let's look at the facts. They were betrayed by a rogue element within their legion, who were destroyed for it. They destroyed their homeworld to boot. Surely, even at the height of the Imperium's bloodlust, they couldn't condemn the Dark Angels for that. Any Astartes who's willing to wipe out a portion of their own legion, destroy their own homeworld, has surely proven their loyalty. I would assume Guilliman is Lord Commander during the years following this. I find it unlikely a legion would be expunged without his direct authority, or first founding chapter if the news unravels after the Codex. Wouldn't Guilliman understand? Wouldn't he see reason? For all his troubles with his brother Lion L. Johnson, he has seen firsthand the totality of his loyalty. The Lion came to Macragge itself to judge Guilliman. There's no way Guilliman would believe the Dark Angel's traitor, at least those who remained beneath the Lion's command. In truth, they aren't the only loyalist legion who faced revolt. Jagatai Khan himself put down a coup within the White Scars. One attempted to sway them to the War Master's banner. You haven't seen the White Scars out there eradicating their history. And whether or not that knowledge is known outside the Legion, I feel the Primarchs would be understanding of the Dark Angel's situation. Guilliman and Jagatai at least. Perhaps the Dark Angels would have still met an unkind fate. I can't say either way for certain here. Perhaps they would have been judged harshly. But I am confident they would have at least been heard. And I don't believe for one moment Guilliman would have had them killed, even if their legion or chapter was disbanded, more likely merged into another, as rumours have had us believe before. With the implementation of the Codex Astartes, I find it even more unlikely they would have been wiped out. So there were options outside the slaughter of innocents, the obsession of secrets that would become a paranoia. Perhaps the Legion wouldn't have lived on, but the Lion's legacy could have. It's probably quite ironic in a way. It's that legacy of secrets that led to the decision they took, the chapter we have today. Loyal, traitor, the legacy of Caliban begins and ends with its secrets. But as always everyone, what do you think? Were the Dark Angels right or wrong to conceal the truth of Caliban? Considering at the time the Fallen were believed to have been wiped out, should the Dark Angels have been open about their fate, why their Primarch had disappeared, and why their homeworld had been destroyed? Would this have further confirmed their loyalty, willing to fight their own brothers who had betrayed them? Or would it have confirmed their sins, forced the Imperium to act? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. With that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.